Hey everybody, Dave here from Dave Tries to Fix Stuff, channel dedicated to the repair, restoration, and resurrection of broken stuff. And this episode is another in the guitar series of videos that I have where I'm going to be actually working on this Peavey Rockmaster single pickup guitar. We're going to get it cleaned up and back on its feet, and hopefully it should be a pretty easy, fun video. So if you want to stick around for that, by all means, we'll see you in a few. So as you can see, this thing's pretty nasty dirty. I mean, I don't think this thing's been cleaned since it's been owned. It did have strings on, well, it had 4 strings on it when I got it. I took those off pretty much right away. The neck itself appeared to have just a bit of a back bow, nothing too bad. It's not twisted, it doesn't appear to be twisted anyway. So it should be a pretty straightforward job just to get maybe a couple of small quarter twists on the truss rod. I'm going to get everything cleaned up in here. There are some things, like it's got a nice little chunk out of the body right there, plus another one right there. That one's a pretty deep chunk right there. I'm not going to make the same mistake with this one that I made with the Squire P-Bass in stripping this off. I'm not going to do that. If anything, I'll probably give it, if I do anything to refinish it, which I might do. I know a lot of people like keeping stuff like that in there, battle scars and all that. And if it was a guitar that was really worth anything, I would probably do that to try to maintain the originality of it. But this one is not that. This is a cheap little guitar. I would be surprised if this is, I mean, it looks like it's solid wood, so that's a good thing. But it's not anything that I'm worried about as far as having it be worth anything once I'm done with it, or devaluing it if I do certain things to it. So there's a good chance I'll probably clean this off, get some glazing just to fill in these little nicks, scratches, the gouges and all that, get all that filled in and smooth it out, and then probably go over it with another color and change it into something kind of cool. So that's going to be the idea here. And I will get started with getting everything taken apart now and getting everything cleaned up. Now, these things are supposed to be considered sealed, I'm pretty sure, but they're really not. So I'm gonna add just a touch of 3-in-1 to them. Just like that. Okay, well, it appears. Let me show you. Put this one back together and then try to get a close-up of what I'm doing here to show you how I'm doing this. Now, I'm not going to lie. I don't know if this is going to do anything, if this is actually helping anything, or if I'm just pouring a bunch of oil into stuff that doesn't need to have oil poured into it. So it appears to be helping, but we'll see. Okay, so you've got this guy, right? You've got a post, but this is the end of the post that goes through this, or this, I guess it's a shaft or a post or whatever, goes through this sleeve right here and connects to this thing. And that inside of there should have like a spiraled gear, and then this post here gets connected to another gear that will, as you spin this and the spiral moves down, it turns the gear in there and thus can tighten the string. So my hope is that I can take this thing off like that. You're doing it, be careful. There's a bushing, this plastic bushing, but there's also a little washer right there. You got this white plastic bushing and a little washer right there. Be careful of those. You don't want to lose them. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking this thing, I'm just dabbing just a little bit of oil in there, and then kind of spinning it. And then with this thing off, that part pushes up a little bit. So I'm going to push it up. I'm going to put a little bit of in there, like that. And then kind of plunge it up and down as I spin. In the hopes that it'll take some of that oil inside the mechanism. But that's the thing, whether or not it actually does, I don't know. So all right, so here I am at a point where I am debating if I want to just put this back together and have it be good enough, or do I want to proceed with filling in, you know, the problems with this thing, and, you know, filling all the gaps, sanding it down, and painting it. And I mean, part of me just wants to put it back together and use it, but at the same time, I think it would be really cool to come up with a cool new color for it. Plus, I think on something like this, because I am in the middle of doing the Squire P bass right now, and I've painted guitars before with varying degrees of success, and I would say I probably know a lot more about doing it now than I did when I painted them before. So I would almost like to maybe utilize this guitar as a guinea pig to see if the methods that I will be utilizing will actually work well and provide me with a cool looking guitar when I'm done. And also I think I might, I don't know. I mean, I think I could come up with a kind of a cool color for it. I think I might also cut myself a pick guard for it. Just a simple pick guard. And see how that looks. I don't know. Let me think on it for a minute, and I'll get back to you. Okay, so you can see I've removed all the hardware and stuff. So yes, the decision has been made that I am going to paint this thing. Now, in doing the sanding, now all these little imperfections, like right here, in here, this one over here, this guy, that guy, they're all starting to come to the forefront. You're starting to see where the imperfections are that need to be filled. So that's the one good thing about doing sanding as well, is that you can find all the places where you're going to need to do the filling and all that. So. All right, so far it's taken, this is the third application of this stuff I put on, and this stuff, it was very runny at first, and I kind of like, squished it around inside the tube to try to get it mixed up a little better. It's still a little bit runnier than I think it should be, but it's actually turning into more of a paste now. But it's having trouble actually filling everything in. I'm getting it down to just that bottom thing, and it seems to be kind of like a wood filler in a way that when you use it, as it cures, it actually kind of shrinks a little bit. So you put enough in there to where it's flat, but then once you go back and actually start to sand it off, it actually leaves a little bit of a divot in there. So you just got to keep, putting the stuff on, letting it cure, sand it, then put more on, let it cure, sand it until you get something that's nice and smooth and you can't detect. So the best metric to use to determine if what you're trying to fill and sand and all that is smooth enough is to use your fingers, because you can really tell if there, when you go over it, like this one right here, you can see if there's a problem, but I can go over this little one right here and I can feel that there's something just not quite level with that. So that one I'm going to have to hit again, but these I can't even feel a difference going over these. That one I feel just a slight difference, but I really don't think it's enough to where it's going to matter. I don't feel a difference over really any of these. These all feel nice and smooth. So I think this side's almost pretty much done. I just need to hit this little corner right here again. But I'm going to move to the back and fill in the little ones and go from there. Okay, so it is a beautiful, bright, sunny day, and I'm about to start painting here. But before I actually get to it, there's a lot of, cleaning up of this I have to do. I got all the sanding done on it, and now I need to clean up like all the oils and stuff that are left from my hands when I was doing all that stuff before I can actually start putting on any kind of primer. So to do that, I'm just using the regular old glass cleaner. I've seen a few different videos from people that know what they're doing when it comes to painting. As I've said before, I really do not know what I'm doing when it comes to painting. And therefore I'm kind of just doing this as best as I know how to do. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be the right way. So, but the guys that know what they're doing, I've seen use this glass cleaner stuff to clean off all the excess oils and all that. So if it's good enough for them and they get good results, then it should be good enough for me. Okay, so I just realized that I apparently didn't turn the camera on correctly when I painted this thing with the first, all it was just a single coat of primer, but I didn't record that, so I apologize that I didn't record that. But I've got the first coat of primer on here, and it's actually in pretty good shape. You can see right here, it's pretty visible. One of the spots that I had got sanded down just a little bit too much, so I'm going to have to fill that back in. And this other spot right here, those are going to have to get filled back in. But I'm going to get that glazing back out, get those filled up, resand it, and hit it again with another quick spot of primer, and then let that go ahead and cure. Then we can do a little bit, just a real easy sanding on it, and then go back and actually get the paint going on it. And I think I've got a fairly cool idea for what I want to do for the paint job. So hopefully it'll work out, but we'll see. So I started to do the taping that I want to do on this, to tape off the parts that I'm going to keep white, because it's going to have obviously a white stripe going through it like this. Comes down, goes down that way, comes up right along here. For this thin piece of tape, what I did was, you basically will take your masking tape, and I just have a granite countertop. You'll want to use something like a matte countertop or something that's not going to get messed up if you cut on it. But I use a straight edge, and I'll pull a piece of tape off, and I'll actually use the straight edge to lay it out flat, in a straight line, because even if you pull it tight, it'll bow and all that kind of stuff. So you want to make it as straight as possible. Then you can just measure up with, a pen or something on either side how far you want it, and then you can set it up like that, and then just use a razor blade to cut yourself a thin strip, which is what I did over here. And now I have this strip going like this. So that's that part. So the other thing I'm going to add to this guitar is this image right here. And I printed this up on a laser printer with laser toner, and it's actually reversed from what I want it to be. So when it's on the guitar, it's actually going to be face down. And I have another one here that is just black and white. That's the same size as this one. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out around this thing and use that as a mask on the guitar itself. So what I'm going to want to do is cut this just slightly larger, slightly outside the outlines of the image itself. Alrighty, so now you can see I've got this thing cut out. And the way I'm going to have this thing set in here is, I don't know how difficult it's going to be to see, but because again, it's going to be reversed, so I have to put it that side down. I'm basically going to have it about like that. So what I'm going to do, and the reason I cut it a little bit bigger like that, Because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fold some masking tape, you know, kind of over. So it'll be fairly flat, but not completely flat. So when I actually put this thing on here and have it in the position I want it in, it's actually going to be floating above the top of the guitar just a little bit, but it won't go anywhere. But the hope is as I'm spraying the other color on here, what will end up happening with this sitting up just a little bit, it'll allow for almost kind of a feathering of the other color into the white. So there'll be white there to be the background for the other picture, but it's not going to be this harsh white, you know, this really set thing. It'll kind of feather in. That's the hope anyway. So let me get some masking tape and get that masked down. Yeah, I started getting a lot up here, but that's not going to matter because this is already masked off right here, and this is going to sit partially on there. So I got to kind of figure out exactly how I'm going to want it. Okay, so that'll work for me. All right, I'm going to go ahead and grab that other paint, and hopefully we won't have too much trouble. You know, now that I'm looking at this thing, I'm wondering if I should probably do a really light sanding. In fact, you know what, I'm gonna pull this thing back off, and I'm gonna do a real light sanding on this because I didn't do that yet, and I want to make sure this paint adheres the way it's supposed to. So I got a little ahead of myself there, but that's okay. That's what's great about masking tape. So let me go grab a real light sander. I'll be right back. All right, so I got everything ready to go. Got my Duplicolor, which is like a car type of paint. Let's see what this does. All right, I've given it a couple minutes to dry a little bit. It's still not completely dry yet, but it's enough to where I need to take this stuff off so I can see if it has turned out correctly. That'll probably work okay. Look at that. That's not good. Or maybe it'll just be like a cool race car stripe with all the... I'm gonna have to redo this a little bit, but I'm gonna let it dry a little bit more like that and see what I get. All right, so it's the next day here, and this thing had time to cure overnight. And I'm looking at it, and I fully admit that what happened here was a screw up. I did not mean to have this end up like this. And I'm pretty sure I know the reason why this happened. Because I went through and I sanded everything, because there needs to be a way for the paint to actually bond to the other paint, either chemically, you know, if they're made to bond together, or some sort of mechanical way to bond to this. Meaning that you have to like sand it and stuff so it gets a rough edge and it can adhere to the rough edge of the paint. And because I had already put the tape on here because I wanted to protect the paint that I had, the white stripe on this, I didn't sand the whole thing. I just put the tape on and sanded up next to the tape, and I didn't sand well enough in these areas, and I think that's why the paint did not stick to that, and when I pulled the tape off, it just peeled off. Now, that said, I'm looking at this, and I honestly don't mind it that much. I mean, it's got kind of a, I almost kind of want to like pick a little bit more off these edges and tear this edge up just a little bit more. See if I can make that kind of resemble what happened up here a little bit better, because I think that's got kind of a cool look to it. And then after I add the little image here, I think that's going to look really cool. So I don't think I'm going to go back and do this again. I mean, first of all, this was a guinea pig of a project anyway. I wanted to see how I could do the painting on this, so I'm not really altogether all that worried about how it ends up, but And I definitely don't want to spend a boatload of time doing stuff to it, but I figured if I kind of pick this up here, it would give it kind of a, I don't want to say a relic look, but like it's been, you know, like it has history. And I think that would look pretty cool. So, all right, so now I'm at a point where I am going to be putting on this graphic here. As you can see, this thing is reversed. So it's going to end up going on like that. Whenever you want to put on a something like this, you can use Mod Podge, I've read. So what I'm going to do, set this on here. And no, I've never done this before, so we're going to see how this works out. I got that on there as best as I can figure, best as I can see. So I'm trying to clean up a little bit of the squeezed out Mod Podge. I don't want it to mess up the paint on there. I'm gonna let this dry for a few hours, and then we'll come back and do the next step on it. So we'll be right back. All right, now before I get going on this next part, I'm going to explain a little bit why I didn't really have a problem with the messed up nature of these lines coming on here, and that's because I have very little faith that the end result of this thing that I did here is going to look like this. It's not going to look like just a thing put on there. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of little pieces that are going to be missing, so it's going to have kind of a retro look to it as well. So I think it's going to kind of match with the messed up look of the lines. So that's kind of where I am. So what I need to do at this point, it's been drying now for a couple hours. It should be fine. I think it's dried enough at this point. I've got some hot water I'm running here. So I'm going to, I got some wet towels. I'm going to start to saturate this real good. So I'm wondering if maybe I should have let this dry just a little bit longer. I'm wondering if that's why this stuff's coming off. In these, I mean, like I said, I get very impatient with stuff like this, as in I don't wait nearly as long as I should. And, you know, maybe I should have let this thing dry overnight or something. But again, you know, I look at it as it'll give the whole thing kind of a cool retro, worn, you know, kind of a feel to it. So. Okay, so it's basically finished. You can see here with that, because of the Mod Podge, it's got some bubbling looking stuff. I mean, it's not, it doesn't have bubbles. Like if you rub it, you're not gonna hear like the crackling of bubbles. It's because the Mod Podge is underneath it. I think if I had to do this over again, I would probably take like a squeegee of some sort or a credit card and like squeegee this out to get as much Mod Podge out from underneath it as possible, so it would be flatter than that. But you know what? This was all supposed to be an experiment. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier or not, but this was all supposed to be an experiment as to whether or not I can actually get this accomplished. And I'm really extremely happy with how it turned out, even with the mistakes of the, you know, the little rips in the paint. Because like I said earlier, knowing that this was going to happen here, that just adds to the overall motif, in my opinion. I think it really does look good. I'm very happy with it. All right, so I got the thing all put back together. Got a little setup going on it. It actually looks really good in my opinion. I really like it. You can see the coolness factor of it. I'm very happy, very, very happy with how this thing turned out. I love the imperfections on it, you know, which again, I fully admit were not on purpose. They just kind of happened. But the fact that they did happen, I mean, I kind of knew that it was going to happen with the decal on here that I put on here, but the rest of it, I think it all kind of works together and gives it almost like a distressed or kind of a road-worn look. I think it really adds to the character of the guitar. So, but as far as that, I put the Bellcat in here and it sounds good. Let's and see what it sounds like. A little more dry, a little more volume. This one. Yeah, that's a lot brighter. So that does it. Again, very happy with how this thing turned out, and now it's going to go sit on a wall probably and stay there for years collecting dust, because that's what I do. I buy crap, I fix it up, and then I put it on a wall and never sell it. But either way, this is pretty cool. I might actually take this out and use this for a gig. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But anyway, I want to thank you all for watching the episode. Be sure to click subscribe and like the episode, click notifications, all that good stuff. And we will see you next time on Dave Tries to Fix Stuff. Thanks a lot for watching.